Closing time. Creep outside the glass. I laughed when I saw it. I am writing this because I barely made it home. I sat in my stool by the door like I always did. I knew everyone. Marty trusted me with the keys when he got tired. I pulled the stools up and helped count the till. The neon beer sign in the window flickered like always. Open, then dead, then open. The hum of the beer cooler filled the room. It always did that at night. It sounded like a big cat sleeping. The last drunk, Ray, took forever to find his coat. He told me a joke I already knew. I told him to go before his wife killed him. He laughed. The door chime dinged when he left. He saluted the empty room. He said, "You locking it down, Mikey?" I said, "Yeah, Daddy left me the keys." I shook them so he could hear the ring. I talked like it was cool. It felt cool. It felt like I owned the place for 10 minutes. I wiped the bar with one of those gray rags. I tossed bottles back into the fridge. The cooler hummed. The neon buzzed and blinked. I liked the sound. It meant I wasn't alone. I rolled my neck and stared at myself in the long mirror behind the bar. I looked tired. I made a stupid face at myself. I turned back to the front door and saw him. He stood through the glass, pale, like he lived inside a freezer. He looked like a man, but not right. Shoulders, too, even. Head a little long. No hair, no hat. Just skin and a long face and a dark mouth. His eyes looked off, like one looked past me. He stood very still. He didn't breathe. He didn't fog the glass. He looked at me or past me. I couldn't tell. I said, "We're closed, pal." I said it with a bar voice. Big, like the room was mine. I waved him off. I stepped around the bar and went to the door. I kept my hand on the lock. I didn't open it like an idiot. I knocked on the glass with my knuckle. "Hey." Closed. He didn't move. I said, "Come on, man. Halloween is in October." It wasn't even close to October. I smiled at him because it felt dumb to frown at a mime or whatever. I cracked the door anyway because that's what I did. I opened it a foot. Cold air hit me. I stepped out and looked right and left. The street looked empty. The alley looked dark, but fine. No one stood there. I looked down the sidewalk. A car passed. I felt stupid and brave at the same time. I took 2 steps out and turned a circle. Nothing. I laughed out loud. The laugh sounded small. Shoes scraped on concrete somewhere, real slow. That made the hair on my neck stand up. I couldn't place it. I looked at the glass again from outside. 2 wet handprints sat on it. High up, spread wide. The moisture ran down in long lines. I had not touched it. The bar name read backward from my side. The prints sat over the letters. They looked placed, like someone pressed with slow, flat palms. I said, "Cute, like it was a prank." I rubbed one with my sleeve. It smeared. It didn't feel like rain. It felt like breath. I went back in. I swung the door shut and turned the deadbolt. The chime dinged as the door closed. That felt off. It only dinged on opening, not closing. I told myself the wires were old. I held the bar key ring. It felt heavy. I locked the second lock too. I tugged the handle twice. Solid. I stood and looked at the mirror across from me. I expected to see him outside, but I only saw the streetlight and the flicker of the neon. I said, "Some people," and shook my head. I talked out loud to kill the nerves. "Nice try. Go bother Sal's down the block." The lights flickered. Just a fast blink. The neon stuttered and buzzed hard. The cooler hummed louder for a second. Then, normal. I laughed and slapped the mirror with the rag like I cleaned a spot. That felt tough. The door chime dinged. My head snapped around to the door. It stayed shut. It didn't move. No one touched it. I heard it clear. Ding! One time. No second ding. I knocked on the glass again from inside. "You still there? You want to play a song on that thing?" I got nothing back. I set my palm on the glass. Cold. I pulled my hand back fast because I remembered the prints. It felt like I touched someone's skin. I told myself it was nothing. I turned off the TV. I counted the tips. I put the cash in the envelope and walked it back to the office safe. The cooler hummed behind me. The neon flickered. I kept a laundry list going in my head. Wipe, sweep, lock, lighter, smokes, trash. When I came back out, I called Eddie. He lived 2 streets over. He worked nights sometimes. He picked up on the second ring. "What's up?" he said. "Got a weirdo outside," I said. I tried to make it funny. Skinny, cold sore guy. "You bored?" "On my way," he said. He didn't even ask where. Everyone knew Marty's. He liked to sit here after shifts. We had watched the fights together a dozen times. While I waited, I went behind the bar and clicked the DVR to the camera view. We had 2 cheap ones. One pointed at the front. One pointed down the hall to the bathrooms in the back. The front one saw the door and half the room. It always had that blind spot by the first booth. The other one skipped a patch near the cooler. I knew every dead zone. I had hidden in them when I smoked. I rewound to the last hour. I scrolled to when I walked to the door with Ray. I watched myself wave him out. The chime dinged. He left. I stood there like a big man. It looked weird seeing my back like that. I saw the glass show the street. Then I saw a pale shape behind me. Hard to explain. It looked like a person but flat. It stood inches behind my shoulders. It didn't reflect right. I could see the rim of my ear and the white of my neck, and then this long, pale head right behind me like it leaned in. I paused it and took a picture with my phone. I zoomed in until the pixels looked like blocks. It looked like a face without eyebrows. The mouth looked wrong. It looked too long. The eyes seemed like 2 holes. I hit play. I stepped out the door in the video. The pale thing stood there, and then the camera glitched and it was gone. The glitch hit when it crossed into the blind spot by the booth. It didn't come out the other side. I rewound. I did it again. Same spot. The spot I laughed about when the Browns came in and the linebackers blocked the view. Eddie walked in then and made the chime ding. He stood by the door and looked out and shrugged. "You didn't see anyone?" I said. He looked at the street. He walked to the alley and looked and came back. "Nothing," he said. He looked at my hands. "You're shaking." I held them up. I joked. I need a drink. He didn't smile. I showed him the clip. He watched. He leaned over the counter. He frowned at the screen. "This is one of those ghost filters," he said. He wanted it to be nothing. He pointed at the blind spot on the layout print we kept taped to the wall. "It probably slipped past. Don't worry." "Cool," I said. My joke voice sounded dry. Maybe it got thirsty. He walked the place. He opened the bathroom doors. He looked under the booths. He even banged on the freezer door. He stood in the back door and looked into the dark lot. He turned back. "You good?" he said. I'm good, I said. I said it fast, like I meant it. I shook the keys and laughed at myself. He left. The chime dinged one time as he went out. I locked the door behind him. I told myself I felt better. I didn't. I looked at the handprints again. They still sat on the glass, smeared now because of my sleeve. I wiped again. It made no difference. Moisture kept filling the shape like the hands were still there. That thought made me swallow. The lights dipped. The cooler went quiet. It felt like someone put a pillow over my ears. The hum had been there, and then it wasn't, and I noticed the silence like a slap. The neon flickered hard and went dark, and then came up half strength. My eyes pulled to the big mirror again. It looked the same at first. Bottles, me, the doorway, the booths behind me. Then I saw him. He stood in the mirror where booth 1 should be. He stood between the table and the aisle. He was too pale, like the wall paint, and he had wrong knees. His feet angled in. He faced me in the glass, but nothing stood in the room when I turned around. I stared at the mirror again. He stood closer in the reflection. No movement, just changed. Like I blinked the wrong speed and the picture updated. I said, "Okay, real quiet." I slipped behind the bar so the counter sat between me and the room. I crouched. I picked up the bar phone and dialed 911 and then hung up because I didn't know what I would say. Man in mirror. Good one. I picked up my keys. I kept them in my right hand, pinched in my palm so they stuck out like a little knife. I felt stupid and 12. I looked at the mirror again. He stood at the end of the bar in it. I could see the smudge of a mouth and the curve of a cheek. No hair, no eyebrows. The skin looked thin, like milk skin on hot cocoa when it cooled. I didn't think that then. I just thought thin. He stood patient. He watched me. I didn't see him in the room. It was only the mirror. I stayed crouched. My knees hurt. I heard shoes scrape concrete behind the bar. Not loud. 1 step, slide. 1 step, slide. Like the soles didn't lift all the way. The floor back by the kitchen sat bare concrete. We never finished it. That scrape came from there. It came toward me. I swung my head to the end of the bar. Nothing. The mirror showed him there. The sound moved closer. It matched where he stood in the mirror. I could not take my eyes from it. My mouth felt dry. The cooler stayed dead. The neon buzzed weak. "Okay," I said again, without any big voice. I reached up and grabbed the bat we kept for dumb nights. My fingers slipped because my hand sweated. I bumped a glass. It fell and broke. The crack echoed and died in the dead room. The scrape paused like it listened. Then it came again. Slow, steady. I didn't wait anymore. I stood and ran. I went for the back. I ducked under the service gap and smacked my hip on the corner. Pain shot hot and bright. I ran anyway. The mirror made him seem like he stood right at my side. I didn't look. I hit the hallway. That was the blind spot for the second camera. I remembered that, and it sickened me, like the spot grew teeth. My keys snagged on my belt loop and then fell. They hit the floor and went skittering. I dropped to my knees and grabbed at them. The scrape sound came from the hall mouth. I felt it more than heard it. The hair on my arms lifted. I found the ring by touch. The keys clicked like tiny bells. I jammed the right one in the back lock. My fingers didn't want to work. The hum of the cooler still didn't come back. It felt like the room held its breath. The key stuck. I pulled it out and put it in again. It slid and turned. The lock thunked. I yanked the handle. The door held. It stuck like always. I threw my shoulder into it. It gave. Cold air hit my face. I smelled wet trash and pennies. I heard the scrape right behind me. It sounded at my heels, like a shoe dragged over the sill. I didn't look. I stepped out, pulled the door shut, and spun the lock. The metal hit metal and one of my keys bent. I ran. I ran down the alley. My shoes hit puddles and splashed my pants. I cut across the lot and up the street. I didn't look back because I didn't want to see the shape in the dark behind me. I heard something like the door chime in my head. Ding! Just once. I thought it came from the bar. I told myself it was the bar. I ran harder. I got to my building. I missed the first step and banged my shin. I cursed. I held onto the rail like a child. I got to my door and put the key in wrong twice. I got in and shut it. I locked the top and the chain. I leaned on it and looked at my hands. They shook. They looked not like my hands. I sat on the floor for a long time, with my back to the door. I tried to hear the cooler hum, like if I listened hard enough I could make it start. My phone buzzed. It was Eddie. He texted, "You good?" I typed, "Yeah man, my bad. Drunk imagination." I put a smiley and then deleted it and then sent it anyway. I did not feel good. I poured a shot and my hand spilled half. I drank what stayed. I set the shot glass down and picked up my phone. I went through the photos because I wanted to show myself it was a nothing. I had the still of the camera footage. My back. The pale head inches from me. I had the picture of the door with the prints. I had taken that without thinking when I came back in. The bar name on the glass lay backward, like it always did inside. The wet handprint sat over the letters. I zoomed in. The moisture beaded around the raised decal from the inside. The drip lines ran down the inside, not the street side. My sleeve smear sat inside the print, not over it. I pinched and zoomed until it made me sick. The door chime had dinged with the door closed. The camera showed him at my back inside. The print sat inside. I did not keep him out. I locked the deadbolts. I shut myself in. He stood in the room with me and then moved when the light blinked and the cooler stopped, and the mirror caught him. I closed my eyes and felt stupid and small. I did not want to look at the window. I did, anyway. The shade looked thin. I saw a pale shape stand on the fire escape. It stood very still. It stood like it did at the bar. It leaned close. Breath fogged the glass in a soft oval. The fog grew and faded and grew again. It did that for a long time. The door chime sound rang once in my head, clear as if I sat at Marty's. I am done now. He is still there. The fog shape stayed. Ding! Hey, I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. It really helps the channel. And if you're not too scared yet, check out one of the other stories waiting for you. See you in the next one.